Good morning, everybody. It is 9 o'clock here on a Thursday morning, a wet, rainy morning around the Carolinas. I'm Jane Monreal. You are watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. Majestic Storm is working on her weather forecast. We're going to bring her in at 9:30, so stay with us for that. But I know it was a tough commute, so I feel your pain. It was a slow one. It's gray, cloudy, gross. We need this rain, so, as much as it's not fun to drive in and deal with the day, and it's still the middle of the work week, we need the rain. So that is going to be the talk of the town today. I'm sure how long it's going to last. Again, we're going to check in with our Majestic Storm coming up at 9:30. So stay with us through the 9:30 here. We also are going to see what the weekend holds for us, because we deal with the rain now, and then for the weekend it's going to be nice. No complaints. But at this hour, because he's so busy, we wanted to get this important discussion not out of the way, but underway here, because with the passing of actor Eric Dane at just 53 years old, shocked fans around the world are still dealing with what this means, what happened. It's reigniting a conversation about ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And joining us to help us understand this is neurologist from Novant Health, Dr. Hunter Hewitt. The neurologist has a busy schedule, so I'm glad you were able to make some time for us this morning here on Live Impact News, Doctor.
Of course, I'm happy to be here and see what I can do to help.
Yeah, I mean, really, we just want to talk about ALS, understanding it for those who may not be familiar. Let's start there with just the basics. What exactly is ALS and what does it do to the body?
So starting kind of from the top. So ALS, the other way people sometimes hear about is Lou Gehrig's disease. He's someone else, unfortunately, who had developed the condition. ALS itself, if we kind of break that down, stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. That gives a little bit of an idea of what tends to happen with it. So the amyotrophy is the big part of it. That means amyotrophy, lack of muscles, so the muscles get weaker and weaker. That's one of the big hallmarks of this disease. It's a progressive muscle weakness. That lateral sclerosis part talks a little bit about what specifically happens. It's a dysfunction in part of the spine, particularly of the anterior horn cells that we see, but the main thing is that muscle weakness that happens.
Wow. So you talked about weakness. Eric noticed, he said that he noticed the weakness in his right hand. He blamed it on texting. How early can these symptoms appear? And why do we misinterpret them or, dismiss them so quickly?
So I'll say, especially when we think about the muscle weakness, part of it is because it starts like that, what seems to be so benign. It might just be a little bit of weakness in the hand, a little bit of foot drop, sometimes a slight weakness in talking or trouble swallowing. That in itself is something that isn't scary. That can happen for a lot of reasons for a lot of people. And that's why it is so often at first pushed to the side, because it happens. It's really when it keeps getting worse and it's progressing that really perks our ears and starts thinking, okay, there's something else going on.
Yeah, Eric said that it took about 9 months searching for answers, getting the right questions answered, and dealing with a lot of specialists. Is this a typical timeline to finally get a diagnosis for ALS?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely not uncommon. Is the first thing that happens when we even start thinking about could this be ALS is double checking, is there anything else it could be? Because unfortunately with ALS, though there's treatments to slow it, there's not a cure. So if there's something else that we can treat, that we can use to reverse the symptoms or treat them, we have to find those first. So that's part of that initial workup. Beyond that, for the criteria to say for sure it's ALS, part of it has to affect different muscle groups. So until it progresses to a point where it meets that criteria, that's part of the delay as well. So if someone has a slowly progressive course, it might take months, maybe a few years before we're sure that this is going to be ALS.
Yeah, and the progression of noticing those first symptoms to his ultimate death, about 2 years, is that a typical progression of the disease?
That's a little bit on the faster side. I'll say the average time we kind of think of is about 2 to 4 years. I will say there's a lot of variability for it. For some people, they can have a disease course that lasts for years. For some people, especially if it's affecting more of their speech or for their swallowing, it can be more rapid just because it can even affect their breathing as well.
And what determines then the speed of the progression?
We don't have a great answer for that. We know for ALS, it's probably a mix of some genetic causes and some environmental exposures that just for the right person presents as ALS. So for some people, especially if it's affecting their speech more and it's getting to the point that they need help breathing, that's much more severe and much more rapid versus someone who has a arm or leg predominant ALS variant might have other disabilities, but it wouldn't be as life-threatening as quickly.
As patients' bodies fail them, for better or for worse, their cognition, their mental capacity, their senses in that way are still acutely aware. How does that reality affect the care approach to the patient?
I will actually say a little bit of nuance. That's something newer we've discovered in the last few years. Even though we think of that muscle predominant symptom as what most people see, there actually does tend to be cognitive involvement for ALS as well. Up to about, well, we think about 60% of patients also get some level of memory loss or behavioral changes as part of it, so it can happen. But it is definitely frustrating for patients, especially knowing that they're going to continue to progress in this disease while, for the most part, being awake and aware for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just so sad. anything progressive and in disease like that is so sad. When it comes to no cure, like you said, how about the treatment options? Where do we stand with that right now? Where do we stand with research? Anything promising?
So for the most part, most of our therapies at this point are focused more on slowing the progression of the disease. Again, we have a good idea of some of the process that it involves these anterior horn cells. For some people, there's actually a stronger genetic variant where we have specific pathways that we know are the cause of their ALS. So we are definitely doing more and more research on targeting that, as well as working on just the symptoms. Because while we're trying to get a better cure, making sure that we optimize quality of life as much as we can is important. So there's absolutely still hope, and very much so the increase in funding from increased awareness from the Ice Bucket Challenge, things like that, definitely were a real boon to the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, his death, he was an advocate, though, to the very end. And something like that just puts it out in the forefront for more awareness and more funding. What should people take away, families take away from our discussion, Dr. Hewitt, and as well as Eric Dane's passing from this story?
I'll say in general, the biggest thing I think we can take away is if you notice something new, be aware of it. And then never be afraid to talk to someone. Never be afraid to reach out to a doctor. Make sure you have a good primary care that you see regularly. Someone who can help check in so that way when stuff comes up, we can check in and work on it appropriately in case it is something that we should worry about or can address.
Yeah, it is good to have that primary care and that baseline. Dr. Hunter Hewitt, you're a busy man. I appreciate your time. A great conversation, and learned a lot this morning. Appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Hewitt from Novant Health, doing great work over there. Just want to let you know, coming up this month, or rather next month, March 21st, there is a workshop put on by Beacon of Hope for ALS, thanks to a grant from the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. This is happening. It is free for caregivers as well as families who are looking at, because it does take a village, a family, to help our loved ones deal with diseases like ALS. A caregiver education resilience workshop is happening at the Park Church there on Beatty's Ford Road, and I will be there to help moderate things and help host that event. A free education workshop for you, for the community, from 10 until 2. A great Saturday morning. To learn more, you can go to our website, WCNC.com, also Beacon of Hope ALS.org. And we'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 9:12 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Want to take you out to a live picture right now out to Chappaqua, New York. This is a media gaggle in front of the Performing Arts Center because the Clintons, Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, this morning is expected to give her deposition to the House Oversight Committee in her investigation into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And so what they're doing is holding it here at the in New York as, quote, an accommodation for their schedules, that according to a committee member. So that is going to be happening, though. That is going to come up on our feed at 10:30. It is set to start at 10:30. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton giving her testimony as connected to the Epstein files. Alice Barr in Washington has the latest as we cover this on NBC News.
In an unprecedented move, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton preparing for congressional depositions under subpoena to answer questions in the House Oversight Committee's Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Both happening in New York, beginning today with Hillary Clinton.
It's going to be the video, and we'll release it. The public will see every second of the deposition.
The couple has not been accused of any wrongdoing, denies knowledge of Epstein's crimes, with Hillary saying she doesn't recall ever meeting him, and has demanded all Epstein documents be made public. Photos of the former president appear in Epstein files the Justice Department has released, and ultimately members of both parties agreed they should appear.
Anyone that has information about Jeffrey Epstein or spent any time with him, I think it's important to ask questions.
It comes as NBC News has confirmed an NPR report that summaries and notes are missing from the DOJ's released Epstein files regarding 3 FBI interviews with a Jeffrey Epstein accuser who also made allegations of sexual abuse against President Trump in 2019. The woman alleges both happened in the 1980s when she was 13 years old, according to a source familiar with the investigation. It's not clear if that allegation against the president is in the missing files. The Justice Department saying it released everything it can make public, but would review any concerns raised. The White House pointed to the DOJ's previous statement that some documents, quote, contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. President Trump forcefully denies any wrongdoing related to Epstein. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And again, that is on the schedule to start at 10:30, and the podium there out of New York in Chappaqua. We may or may not see lawmakers or attorneys, spokespeople step up to the podium. That is set up there to be somewhat of this informal place where people step up to the mic. A lot of media are gathered, and that's how we end up collecting some of the sound bites that you hear. But the formal testimony that will also be televised, set to start at 10:30. That is on the schedule, according to NBC News. We will bring that to you here on Live Impact News as soon as we see that. Also happening right now, this is in Chicago, a live picture of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the late Jesse Jackson, who is lying in repose following a procession from his family. He is set to there's also set to be a service in Columbia.
In Columbia, yes.
Next week.
He's a Greenville, South Carolina native, and so he'll be lying in repose at the State House in Columbia. And then the public service is supposed to be in Columbia as well. McMaster's expected to speak. Yes.
Okay.
So.
And that'll be
in Columbia
next week.
That's Monday, right? Yes, Monday.
Okay. So, but right now, and there you can see the procession. Like we said, live pictures of his family making that procession over in Chicago. So the pomp and circumstance just beginning here for the late Jesse Jackson, making his way through Chicago, where he ended up living. All right. We'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 9:20, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm just monitoring some images for you because, it's raining. Majestic storm, Chris Mulcahy, our wonderful weather team, led by Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, Brittany Van Voorhees, Becca Birdsall, Larry, they're all telling us it's going to rain. So we expected this.
We did.
We know it's
It wasn't
raining.
a surprise, but it is icky.
It is, and you just kind of like, I got to drive in this,
Yep.
and I know my drive this morning was not fun.
No.
But we made it.
We made it.
And you just got to take it easy and
Stay safe out there.
and be safe. You know how this goes, driving in the rain. And the good news, though, is we're going to have Majestic Storm come in at 9:30, so that's just 10 minutes away from now. And we're going to talk about the weekend. We're expecting some sunshine, some welcome sunshine. So if you have any outdoor plans, hey, at least it's raining now and not during the weekend, right? You might want to think about gardening. All right, because if you ever wanted to grow your own food, your own herbs, you didn't know where to start, guess what? The Park Community Development Corporation has got you covered. They're holding an event March 7th. So that's not this weekend. It is next weekend. We're going to hope for the best, that the weather cooperates then. Sunset Farm holding a free family-friendly open house right here in West Charlotte. Joining us this morning in the Live Impact studio is Danye Thomas from the Park CDC. Good morning, Danye. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning.
How was
are
your
you?
drive?
It was icky, but
Right?
I made it, so all good.
That's what we said. Yeah, so it is all good. It is all good. We're glad you made the trip over.
Yeah,
So
happy to be here.
for our friends, our viewers here on the Plus who are not familiar with the Park CDC, tell us a little bit about the group and what's the main mission.
Yeah, so we are a wonderful organization. I say we are small in number, but big in impact. We started back in 2017. We were started by the Park Church, but our goal is to create sustainable change within marginalized communities. Basically, that's what we do. And we do that with solutions to affordable housing, healthy living, and economic mobility.
Wow, how do you do that day to day?
Oh, it is fun. We see a need, we find the resources, and we help pipeline that resource to the need. First, I think that we honor our community that we are in. There's a lot of wonderful things happening on the west side of Charlotte, a lot of amazing people on the west side of Charlotte. And we go go in and we ask them, hey, how can we help? Are there any gaps that we can fill? And we do that.
What do you think are the biggest gaps? Or, I mean, it's hard to sort of, put them all up there because they all take top priority, don't they?
They do. They do take top priority, all the needs, but a gap that is high, I think that everybody is talking about now, is just access to quality food. Food accessibility is very important. We all want to have access to quality health care, access to quality food. We want to be able to, go down the street and not have to go 4, 5, 10 miles to get fresh produce. And so we at the Park CDC with our urban garden, we help to mitigate some of those insecurities by providing opportunity to fresh food and education.
How does Sunset Farm then, how does it fit into this mission? How'd you get them on board?
Sunset Farm is a property that we manage. It's owned by Martin Marietta, who's a wonderful partner of ours, and they say, hey, if you're doing great community work, use this land, go ahead. So we have an urban garden where in the past we're doing some restructuring right now, but in the past we've been able to give upwards of 1,200 pounds of fresh produce out to the community. And we also pride ourselves in education. So it's not just having the access, but it's having the education and the resource. So we have garden beds, like we call it our IG space, our intergenerational gardening, where we do a lot of our programming, where we're teaching people how to garden. We're showing you different seeds. We're showing you what's in season, why you should eat what's in season. And that's very important. So we're not just going to teach you how to fish. I mean, not just going to give you the fish, but teach you how to fish.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic for really anybody, but especially if you have to go so far to get quality food, you can do this kind of right at home. What have you seen in the way of, the community progressing through this mission?
We've seen a lot of positivity. One of the biggest things for me is partnerships. What I've learned in this work is that there are other urban gardens that are on the west side that are doing this work, and we're able to partner and fill gaps, because the need is great, we're able to, fill those gaps. So that's what I've learned. There's been a lot of community interest. So once we get out there and say, hey, we're here, you can, you drive past the farm and people are honking their horns or they're stopping, and we're able to say, hey, come on in, see what we're doing. We have, a free farm stand, grab some fresh produce, this is what's in season, and then that leads to conversation, which leads to connection, which leads to partnerships, which leads to volunteerism, and so it's just kind of like this cyclical effect.
Yeah, and it's a domino effect of a very good kind. Walk us through this event, this open house happening March 7th, because you've done this, every couple of months there's an open house to the farm and the work you guys do.
Yeah, we really do it like every quarter. So
okay.
we try not to do it around this time when it's really, really cold. This is more like the planting and getting ready for spring and summer and things like that. But we do it in the spring and summer and early fall. And it's just been so fun. It's been so fun. We have families from all over the city, in the community, and all over the city that are coming out. So we talk about our Cooking Matters class. We have something called Cooking Matters. It's a national organization, and it goes through, how to actually cook, what's in season, the difference between, fresh, frozen. It teaches you all of that. It teaches you how to read food labels. It gives you samples on different foods. That's really my favorite when, you have little kids coming up trying hummus. It's something that they never really like, but we go through what protein is, what carb is, what sugar, what it does for your body. So you'll get a little demo with that. We partner with local chefs, and they come in and they say, hey, what are you growing on your farm? If we're growing beets, if we're growing cabbage, they take that and then they do cooking demos. This is what you can do, and show the community how they can actually cook an array of items with, healthy, fresh produce.
Yeah.
And then we have something called a garden to go. This is one of my favorite. What we found is a lot of people may not have the ability to get to us, so we said we're going to come to you. And we've done this like garden to go, where we teach people how to, with, eco-friendly bags. We take the bags, we put the soil in it, we give them seeds, and then we train them on how to care for your plants. And then, take them through, just give them the education. So they do a garden to go class, which is really, really fun, especially when you get like the families coming in. So you got the parents and the kids, and it becomes like a family affair.
I bet that's really kind of cool, though, when people come back months later or the next quarter and go, those seeds you gave me, Now I've got some nice tomatoes.
Oh my gosh,
Right?
we do like a taco garden or a pizza garden. So, you can plant all things in one little bag. If you like tacos, then plant your cilantro, plant your tomatoes. So it's really fun. Plant your onions. So it's cool.
That is very cool. Why is this something like this and the work you do there at the Park CDC so important for the community and for those who don't even live in West Charlotte, who are not directly impacted, right, in the area? Why is this important for the community to know about?
Well, I think the work that we do helps minimize the silos and build a greater Charlotte community. Like I said, for those who may live on the outskirts of West Charlotte or not in West Charlotte at all, I think they need to know it's some really amazing things happening on the west side of Charlotte, and you don't have to go all the way out of the city limits to find, farmland or, gardens. They're happening right here in the inner city. People are being innovative, like us and others. They're being innovative, and they're growing their food right in their backyards. It's important because it helps build community. We're able to, so many people that I probably would not have ever met had I not been in this work. And I'm learning about their history, how long they've been in Charlotte, what made them move to Charlotte, why did they change the way that they were eating, and it just builds community through connection and through volunteerism. And it also helps, it's kind of like a segue into some of the other programs that we have with affordable housing and with economic mobility.
Yeah. Is there something that people can do in the community in addition to visiting and, donating money? Are you still looking for volunteers?
Absolutely. We are always looking for volunteers. We can only do as much as we have capacity for. So when we have volunteers and people who come alongside with us to partner with us, it helps us build our capacity. So there's always going to be a need, but we believe that the answer is proximate. So yes, if you want to volunteer with us, go to our website, attend a volunteer session. Once you do that, come to an event. All that.
All of that. All right. Speaking of coming to an event, what do we need to know for Friday? I'm sorry. What is the date? March 7th, Saturday.
Saturday, March 7th, we would love for you to register. We have something special for you if you register. So go to our website, theparkcdc.org. You can go to our website. You can register. You don't have to register to attend, but it just kind of helps us out, especially when we are, planning for things.
Right.
But yeah, come out, see what we do, talk to our amazing staff. We have amazing volunteers. We have people in the community who are coming alongside of us to do the work, and we're so grateful.
And Sunset Farm, where is that located, and what should people wear or bring?
Oh, thank you. Yes. Long sleeves, please. There are ant mounds. We are in the rain right now, so they're underground, but please, please wear long sleeves. Closed-toe shoes. We ask that you wear closed-toe shoes. And Sunset Farm is located on the corner of Sunset and Peachtree.
Right there in West Charlotte.
Right there in West Charlotte.
Yeah. Honk. It'll be all where all the honks are from.
Yes, exactly.
All right, lovely job. Danya Thomas coming from the Park CDC, telling us about their group, all of the wonderful things they do for the West Charlotte and beyond community, looking for volunteers and looking for you to visit them March 7th. Sounds like it's going to be an awesome event, and learn how you can grow your own food and be sustainable in your own home. So good stuff. All right. Danya, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Majestic Storm is in the Live Impact studio. She is going to be coming up here right after the break. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It's 9:33. You're watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. Boy, is it wet and icky outside. We knew it was going to be happening, though. Majestic storms here in the Live Impact studio now. Rain, what can you say? We need it, don't we?
We really do. It's kind of just a gloomy, gray, cooler start to the day. But yes, we need the rain. But I'll tell you this, if we can get through today, we're going to really make up for it just in time for the weekend.
Love it.
So let's get straight to it. It is very cloudy outside. Here's a live camera look. This one's coming in from Dallas, so way high up. Typically, if we know that there's sunshine on the way, you can at least see the clear skies above the clouds, and that is not the case there. It is going to be a cloudy day all throughout our Thursday. Now, I will say, heading out the door this morning when I was heading off to work, it was already raining, but at least it wasn't that freezing cold rain. Temperatures this morning still mild, and overall today just staying gray and cloudy. There's a live camera look coming in from the Queen City right there in Charlotte. Not seeing any sunshine really across the Carolinas today, and yes, that does include even Lake Norman. Again, like I mentioned, we have to get through the rain today, and then by tomorrow we are warming things up and some sunshine will start to peek out tomorrow. But really this weekend, I hope you can make some outdoor plans. I promise you're going to want to be spending some time outside this weekend with really warm temperatures and a whole lot of sunshine to go around. Here's our satellite and radar. Zoomed it out so you can see all the rain really spreading across the southeast. And once we zoom it in though, let's go ahead and look at our viewing area. We've been holding on to this rain since early this morning. Once we started the show at 4:30, we had rain popping up on radar. Right now it's 9:35 and it's still spreading across the mountains, the foothills here in the city, and then heading out towards our coastal communities as well. Now, when you're looking at this, something to pay attention to is the colors that you're seeing. Of course, the green is just indicating rain, but wherever you have those darker pockets of green, that's where the rain's going to be coming down a little bit more intensely, and especially when you see areas shaded and yellows, that's where it's going to be even heavier at times. Let's zoom it in. You can see right along I-40 from Hickory to Morganton, that's where some of those roads are going to be wet. We will even have some ponding out there. If your morning commute takes you along I-77 out by Lake Norman, heading over towards Cornelius, Huntersville, that's where we do have some heavier rain currently coming down. And then 485, the inner and outer loop this morning. Of course, I covered traffic early on the WCNC morning show, and it has been busy. 485 is always a trouble spot, seems like. And it seems like once we add in rain, things get worse. So I always say, don't rush out the door. Make sure you're driving safely, but really just slow it down. I think people just get in such a rush. They have places to be, they have things to do, so just drive a little slower. I don't think it's that hard. 52 degrees right now here in Charlotte, 40 up towards Jefferson. As we're looking out towards Cheraw, almost 60 degrees, so we didn't cool down a whole lot overnight because we had those clouds to help to keep us kind of warm. So that's why temperatures this morning are still pretty mild. Wind chills aren't too bad. We do have a bit of a breeze, but not nearly as strong as what we saw yesterday. Throughout the rest of our day, I like to show you this planner so that you can plan the rest of your Thursday. You can see the bulk of the rain is going to continue for the first half of our day. I would say after about 2-3 o'clock this afternoon, most of the rain should be gone. Could we still have a couple of stray sprinkles here and there later on the afternoon, early in the evening? Sure, but I think your commute to work or to school to drop off those kids will be much worse compared to when you're picking them up or when you're coming home from work. Lots of cloud coverage today, and then high temperatures rising into the low 60s. So let's get straight to our futurecast. Here's about 10 o'clock this morning. We'll still see that rain that'll be pushing through, still ongoing, and at this point it's still pretty widespread, not meaning exactly everyone's getting rain at the same time, but more people are receiving it than the people who are not. Here's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so at this point we should be drying up nicely up towards areas north of I-40 and right along that. Still seeing a little bit of lingering rain around Charlotte, but the bulk of it is still south of us. Remember, like I mentioned, watch for those pockets shaded in yellows and oranges because that's where the rain will be coming down quite intensely. You might even hear a couple rumbles of thunder as well. We're not too concerned at all actually about any severe weather, but could we have a random storm? We could. Now, as we're heading into the 4 o'clock hour, again, all of that rain continues to scoot out. By Friday, tomorrow is finally Friday, temperatures will still be mild heading out the door, not too terribly cold. A cloudy start to the day. Sprinkles will be possible for the first half of our Friday. And then by later on Friday, we'll start to see nice gradual clearing and again, temperatures on the warming side. Now, I don't think Friday will be as nice as what we have to look forward to on Saturday and Sunday, but again, Friday won't be nearly as bad as what we're seeing outside now. Now, here's something to look forward to. Saturday, 4 o'clock, what are you guys doing? Hopefully something fun because this is showing nearly a perfect future cast.
Plans.
Clear skies. I got to figure something out to do. Yeah. It's going to be so nice, both Saturday and Sunday. Temperatures warming up really nicely. But before we get to our weekend forecast, let's talk about how much rain we could actually receive today. Once it's all said and done, our models are indicating kind of less and less rain. So up to 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch for most places. Some areas receiving up to an inch, so it's not a ton of rain. But remember, we get our drought monitor updated and released every week. We will get that later on today, and we don't really expect any great improvements because of how bad the drought is. We need significant rain and multiple rounds of it to really put a dent in things. But I think the rain today, while it might be a little inconvenient or you're not really looking forward to it, we need it today. Now tomorrow, here's your planner. Heading out the door for your Friday morning, 7 o'clock, we're cloudy. We're in the low 50s though, and a couple of stray showers again possible for the first half of our day on Friday. And then by the afternoon, nice mix of sun and clouds. 10-day forecast as far as the rain goes. You can see the widespread rain is happening today, and specifically for the first half of our Thursday. Rain chances drop significantly Friday, 0 chances both Saturday and Sunday, and then some small chances return on Monday. Now this is what you're probably going to love. 67 degrees, some sunshine on Saturday, even warmer on Sunday though, 77.
Love it.
That's pretty warm.
Bring
It's
it.
a great day.
That's going to be beautiful. I know lots of people will be outside enjoying that. So even beyond that, watch this. You got to enjoy the weekend because by Monday, all of a sudden, our highs drop to 50 degrees.
I'm tired of it.
It's all over the place.
It's up and down, up and down.
You know,
I understand. I'm from the Carolinas. This is how
This
it
is what
happens.
does.
It doesn't make it less annoying.
It
But
is
I'm- You know
annoying.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
still annoying.
yeah.
It's like you get your hopes up. You're like, okay, I think spring's here.
Nope.
Nope.
Not the case.
No, it's like 50 degrees on Monday. Tuesday, a high of only 49. But then by Wednesday, we're starting to warm things back up. I do want to finish off with our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast here. Again, our average high is 59 degrees. That would be our typical day here. Today, we're just above that, 60 degrees, however, cloudy and rainy. Then tomorrow, Friday, I think we'll have a lot of cloud coverage. However, mostly dry, other than a little bit of sprinkle potential earlier in the day. Saturday and Sunday, I'm calling this just a picture perfect weekend. It's going to be so beautiful. Hopefully you can do something fun outside. Cooler start to our Monday and Tuesday, and then by Wednesday and into the later half of next week, conditions start to improve again. So kind of a roller coaster of a weather forecast, but we just got to get through it.
Can we get through it?
We'll get through it.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
it could be worse.
It could be worse. I mean,
it could be
in the
better.
Northeast.
77 on Sunday. I really can't complain.
Right.
Yeah.
We could be up in the Northeast trying
Oh
to
my
dig
gosh,
out
I
of
know.
3 feet of snow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It could be worse.
Yes.
So there's that.
So there's that.
Optimists.
We're trying.
All good, you know. Really, it's fine. And again, I look forward to that drought monitor. Because
Yes.
we can take a little look see at that. Yeah, we need it, folks. We need it. I keep telling myself, just like I need some broccoli every now and then.
You gotta
Even if you
know,
don't
we gotta
love
have,
it, you
we
gotta
have our
have it.
vegetables. We can
Right.
make it good though.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can make it good. All right, Majestic Storm, and thank you.
Yes, of
Have
course.
a good one. See you later. And we'll see you in about 2 minutes. We'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Here at 9:44 in Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, this seems to be the hour on health. Right now, we want to go to a live hearing that is happening in Washington, D.C. It is the Senate Special Committee on Aging. They're holding a hearing titled From Regulator to Roadblock, How FDA Bureaucracy Stifles Innovation. Let's listen in.
Time is a commodity. Traditional large placebo-controlled trials are often neither feasible nor ethical when considering the challenges and urgency of rare disease. Beginning with the passage of the Orphan Drug Act in 1983, your leadership has provided tools that have rocketed the U.S. into the most competitive developer of rare disease products. Each landmark law since has reshaped our landscape. In fact, tomorrow marks an anniversary of another watershed moment for our community here on Capitol Hill. The MD CARE Act hearing, convened in this exact same hearing room, presided over by Senator Arlen Specter, included a 13-year-old named Benjamin Cumbo. 25 years ago, I watched with great pride as Ben asked Congress for actions that could help cure him and his friends so that he could achieve his dreams of growing up, having a girlfriend, and serving his country. And Congress did respond. In that time, Congress has built a framework that incentivizes rare product development, authorizes regulatory flexibility, creates new pathways to approval, and embeds patient experience into review. While fewer than 5% of rare diseases currently have an FDA-approved treatment, nearly 1,400 orphan-designated therapies are now changing the lives of patients and families. But recently, this momentum has shifted. We are here today because our community has experienced worrisome trends with devastating consequences. While we are heartened by recent announcements of therapy development initiatives such as the Rare Disease and Evidence Principles Framework and the Plausible Mechanism Pathway, and are eager to work with the agency on their implementation, our rare disease community has experienced a series of product application actions that seem misaligned with these recent public pledges to expand the use of regulatory flexibility. Since the start of 2025, we have seen at least 23 complete response letters declining to approve rare disease therapies, many under accelerated approval, that suggest a hesitation to apply regulatory flexibility through surrogate endpoints, natural history studies, and external controls. At that same time, advisory committee meetings for drugs and biologics declined by 65% compared to 2024, reducing opportunities for external expertise and patient insights to inform complex rare disease product decisions. We asked families who'd been personally affected by recent regulatory decisions to reflect on their impact. These stories will be shared for the record. Story after story spoke to chilling consequences of recent regulatory delays and clinical trial hurdles. As one mom shared about her son, Stone, "My son is now receiving this experimental treatment, and he is thriving. For the first time since his diagnosis, his doctors have told us with this treatment, a near normal lifespan is within reach for a disease that once came with a teenage expiration date that is nothing short of extraordinary. But we are now living in fear, not because science failed, not because companies stopped fighting rare disease, but because of regulatory inconsistency. We are here today because congressional action is needed to ensure that this generation of patients will benefit from our existing rare disease treatment pipelines. We ask that Congress engage FDA to clarify its approach to accelerated approval for our diseases, its consistent application of regulatory flexibility, and to urge the resumption of advisory committee meetings so that external expertise informs complex reviews. We also urge Congress to resource the Rare Disease Innovation Hub to strengthen cross-center coordination and to establish the Rare Disease and Condition Advisory Committee and a science-focused drug development initiative."
You've been watching a live subcommittee hearing in the Senate on aging as they're having a special conversation there. Speaking of aging, at 9:50, we want to talk about Alzheimer's. It's a disease that is now expected to affect nearly 40% of Blacks and Latinos in the U.S. by 2030. That's just 4 years from now. Yet it remains one of the most under-discussed health crises in communities of color. So to help us understand this is dementia care expert, nurse, and researcher, Dr. Fayron Epps, who joins us now. Dr. Epps, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Those numbers are quite alarming. What do you attribute this to?
Yeah, they are alarming, and we're not having these conversations, as Black Americans are twice more likely than their white counterparts. Latino families are 1.5 times more likely. And one of the things is a lot of the information is not getting into these communities. They also don't have access to resources and supportive programming. So it's so important. We at Alzheimer's in Color, we are trying to make sure that they get the information that they need so they can have these honest conversations, and we can start really getting the help sooner and change the narrative and change these statistics.
Yeah, is there a cultural component to it as well that sort of drives a little bit of the silence? They don't discuss this at the dinner table?
Yes, so there's stigma all around, but especially in our communities of color, this is just something that we have not been educated on, and we don't have these conversations. And many times, whatever happens in a household, it stays in the household, and we don't go out and share. And that's why storytelling is so important, that in Alls in Color, we're making sure that we share our stories so we can change these narratives.
Yeah, tell us about this program, Alter, and only nurse-led dementia-friendly program, right?
Yeah, Alter is where we partner with Black faith communities to equip them with the resources so they can be dementia-friendly faith spaces. And we are a supporting partner with Alls in Color, which is a campaign focused on brain health conversations in Black and Latino communities.
And what specifically do you do to reach out to these communities?
Yes, and so on our website is where we have a lot of the resources, webinars. We are empowering communities with authentic storytelling, and so we're making sure we have individuals, families share testimonies, and we welcome more families to share testimonies. As I mentioned, when we can talk about this and share, we can help more people.
Why does it matter that you've dedicated so much of your life and your career and your passion to, culturally tailored programs and getting these stories out? Why is this important to you?
It is so important because many times we don't get the resources, or we're not doing things that can help our community. But when you can see resources that respond specifically to the needs that you have within your family and community, you can start taking action, and that's what it's really about. We have to change these statistics. You mentioned how they are alarming. We need to do something about that, and we need to take action. And so promoting brain health in our communities and having these conversations around brain health is so important.
When families watch a loved one with something happening at home, a warning sign, a red flag, something that seems off, for families that don't talk about this, right, what do you tell them? What's the first step?
Yeah, so when you see this, we encourage them, try to share with another family member. If you're not comfortable sharing it with your family, when you go to your healthcare provider, share with them what you're seeing. One of the things is it's just not about forgetting and misplacing things. It's also could be drastic personality changes. It can be not being able to complete a familiar basic task. Those are things that we need to bring up and share with our family and or share with the healthcare provider so we can start getting help.
And when it comes to families of color, Black, Latinos, what is something you want them to know that a lot of people don't know about Alzheimer's or dementia?
Yeah, so what I want them to know that it is actually happening in our community, and this is a public health crisis. So we cannot just sit on this and continue to be silent. We no longer can be silent as a community, as a people. We have to discuss this, have these conversations, bring this home, have these conversations over dinner so we can get the help that we need.
Yeah, I mean, 4 years from now, 40% of Blacks and Latinos to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That is just unimaginable. What can people do today, Dr. Epps? How to get involved and get more information?
Yes, so if you want to get involved, please visit our website, allsincolor.com, and you can get more resources, get education at your fingertips, and we are here to help you.
Dr. Fayron Epps, appreciate your time this morning and the initiative that you're taking, being proactive in trying to break the stigma of Alzheimer's in our Black and Latino communities. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Back here at 9:57 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Late last night, a house fire broke out in the Steel Creek area of Charlotte, trapping 2 firefighters in the back. They're expected to be fine. Our Richard Devane on this story this morning, filing this earlier report on WCNC Plus. Get you caught up.
As for the house, take a look at it. We actually walked around to the side. It looks really bad from the front, but if you walk around to either side, there's nothing to that house. It is totally destroyed. One neighbor tells us that he heard explosions on his, looking through his security camera while he was at work, and actually saw 2 explosions, hearing explosions and seeing 2 explosions coming from the side of that house. Now, we're told by the fire department, actually, the Steel Creek Volunteer Fire Department is just about a mile up the street from where I'm standing now. They came out here about 9 o'clock, they said, after they got a call. The person I spoke with said his wife actually made that 911 call. The person who was inside, of a husband, his wife, and their 2 children, he actually got his kids out and he jumped from an upstairs window to get out. Now, we can tell you that firefighters inside were, at the time of this fire, were battling it, and the back portion roof actually collapsing on top of them. Now, of course, the fire department going into what is called one of its things that it's trained for, making sure those firefighters are safe and evacuating them from the building. We spoke with Charlotte Fire Department spokesperson Bill Southard. He had this to say about those procedures. Take a listen.
Fortunately, we have ways to provide air to firefighters that are trapped. We just plug air right into them and give it to them, and they just sit there and relax, and we dig them out. And that's exactly what happened tonight. I will say what we saw today was a lot of preparation, practice, and training come into play. And it happened. And we're very happy that we had 2 firefighters transported to the hospital just to check them out real quick.
Yeah, he said, and those firefighters are expected to be okay. They didn't have their names for us last night because they were still trying to get the notification and the conditions to their families. Of course, we'll get that information today, and as you can see, the fire marshal is also here, so we should get an understanding of exactly what caused that fire. As for the homeowner, we found out that they've been here since about 2021, and this unfortunately is the second time they've had a fire in their home. We're right here in Still Creek section of Charlotte. This is Richard Devane. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
Also this morning, a Charlotte man still searching for answers after his partner was detained by Department of Homeland Security. Our Destiny Richards in North Charlotte covering this story. Again, this is from earlier on WCNC+.
Yeah, Luis Duque says what seemed like just a traffic stop ended up taking an unexpected turn, all while his partner was already working on getting U.S. citizenship. Now, he says this all happened Wednesday morning as they were commuting to work. A vehicle with flashing lights pulled them over, then several unmarked cars surrounded them. Duque says about 10 agents, some in tactical gear, approached saying they were looking for someone driving a similar vehicle. That's when both men were asked for identification. Duque says his partner, Oscar Castillo, who was not born in the U.S., did not have an ID and was taken into custody. Hours later, he called from the DHS facility on Tyvola Road and was told he could either self-deport or remain in custody to see an immigration judge. Duque says his partner was already working with attorneys to adjust his legal status with paperwork underway.
As far as we knew, they were in the process of waiting on that. There was no order of deportation. There was no court appearance or anything like that. So there was nothing to our knowledge that, said that he had like some sort of warrant for his arrest. I see people comment or say like ignorant things like, oh yeah, they're getting the criminals off the street, but my boyfriend is not a criminal.
We also spoke with the local advocacy group Action NC, who says they're pushing for policies that would limit immigration enforcement on city property when there is no warrant. Now, right now, Duque says he's working with immigration lawyers to try to figure out next steps and try to bring his partner home. Live this morning in North Charlotte, I'm Destiny Richards, WCNC Charlotte.
There's a live picture right now out of Chappaqua, New York, where Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, is expected to give her testimony to the members of the Republican-led House Oversight Committee as part of their investigation into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. They're doing it out of New York to accommodate schedules, and that is set to start at 10:30. When that happens, we'll bring it to you here on Live Impact News. For now, here at 10:02, we'll take a break on Live Impact News on WCNC+. At 10:05 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, want to get you back out to that Senate committee hearing. This is a special committee on aging holding a hearing titled From Regulator to Roadblock, How FDA Bureaucracy Stifles Innovation. This is live in Washington, D.C. on Live Impact News.
Just a few weeks before her 15th birthday. For decades, we've known the cause of this disease. We can precisely measure the levels of toxic biomarker to determine whether a treatment's working. And now we have the science to treat it. Thanks to NIH funding and support from nonprofit foundations, including our own, a promising gene therapy was developed and propelled towards clinical trial at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Ohio. While we anxiously were awaiting news the trial would begin, back at home we watched Eliza's sentences becoming shorter, her words less frequent. She became agitated and hardly slept. The disease was taking hold. 2 years later, in May 2016, the clinical trial finally began. And Eliza, then 6.5, was so very lucky to be the first child to receive that gene therapy. It was her chance at a life different from Izzy's, a chance to grow up. Now at 16, it's clear the therapy changed her life. She surpassed average life expectancy, runs on the beach, plays in the water, uses picture cards to tell us how she's feeling and what show she wants to watch on TV. She can feed herself and goes to school every day. These are simple but incredibly meaningful abilities that have a huge impact on her daily life. And children treated with higher doses earlier in life have even more remarkable outcomes. Like Caroline, who's now 10, she can read, play on a softball team, and learn to ski on her recent family vacation. But despite these breakthroughs, and nearly 10 years after the trial began, families outside the trial are still waiting for access. Why? Because last summer the drug was denied approval, not because of safety or how the children were benefiting, but for questions about manufacturing. And while this is an important issue, FDA could have used its flexibility to continue reviewing the application while addressing questions in parallel. You see, early on, trial data confirmed the drug's mechanism was more than just plausible, it was biologically effective, showing significant reduction of toxic biomarker within just 6 months after treatment in all the children. Granting accelerated approval based on this biomarker would have brought treatment access to children years earlier, preventing further brain damage and changing the lives of so many children, like Sadie, who's here today, who's still waiting. This same drug application was recently resubmitted, but FDA issued another denial asking for yet more paperwork before agreeing to review it again. Congress has given FDA the tools of flexibility it needs to accelerate approvals for these devastating diseases. But sadly, flexibility and speed are not actually what most rare disease patients are witnessing. Transformative therapies are at FDA's doorstep, and so with great respect, families are pleading for FDA to unlock the door and move with urgency so that our children can have a chance at the life they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for your testimony. Now we'll go to questions. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I have to commend you for another excellent hearing here. At the start of the hearing, I received a text from Laura McGlynn, who reminds me that 10 years to this day, as Chairman of Homeland Security, I held a hearing titled Connecting Patients to New and Potential Life-Saving Treatments. Her son, Jordan, who suffered from Duchenne muscular dystrophy, testified at that hearing, was certainly present there. 2 years later, that resulted in Right to Try, which was not easy to pass. I had to hold up the FDA user fee bill, had to water down Right to Try quite a bit to make sure that Big Pharma wouldn't sabotage it. They did sabotage it over in the House, but because of President Trump's leadership, he forced the House to pass the Senate version. Its main benefit is its name. It's very limited in its application, unfortunately. But people have the right to try. Laura has also begged me in a text to mention Adalurin and Duramiacel, two investigatory drugs that are also being held up by the FDA for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I think we probably are going to need another piece of legislation, probably Right to Try 2.0, something that's going to be far more effective than the current right to try. But I'll tell you, reading this testimony this morning, you can maybe tell just by my passion, it enraged me. It enraged me that these families, these patients are being denied effective treatments because the regulatory roadblocks. Quick story, and again, I want to ask questions, but a quick story. After I met the Duchenne muscular dystrophy community, they went up before a panel of FDA. This was probably in 2016, 17, or 18, begging, there are about 60 Duchenne muscular patients' families, begging the FDA, please approve this investigatory drug for our children. Again, time is muscle, time is brain. And that panel, I don't know who sat on it, listened to those 60 families begging them and said no. Just like they said no, and I can't even pronounce these diseases and drugs. They say no time and time and time again. That has to change. Congress is directing the FDA, be more flexible, say yes. You know, these patients understand the risks. They ought to have the right to try. Dr. Schmamann, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, sir.
I don't want you throwing anybody under the bus because I don't want this to impact future approvals. But describe your meetings with CEDAR. I mean, to me, it's shocking to have one of those members of that panel say, why should we listen to you? Well, because you're a doctor at Harvard, you're treating patients, you're having success, you're giving them a new lease on life, and you've got bureaucrats inside these agencies saying, why the hell should we listen to you? So I want you, going into greater detail, describe what those meetings are like.
Thank you, Senator. We've heard a few words a few times. Heartbreaking is the experience of patients and families going through this, and the compassion that is required. I saw none of that in the 3 meetings with the FDA. The members of the panel were like talking to a brick wall. There was no engagement, no dialogue. In fact, they said as much. This is not a dialogue. This is not a collaboration. They did not seem to see the suffering of the patients, and they didn't hear the science. They were rigid and inflexible and unyielding. The FDA worked with the company initially, but then they changed their mind later. And so as the studies unfolded, everything came to a grinding halt. This drug in particular is safe. It metabolizes into a drug that's been there for 30 years in the market and is safe. Patients say it works. The doctors say it works. The study shows it works. The double-blind first study showed it worked. The real-world evidence shows it works. Patients behind me, every one of them, talking to them yesterday, say it works. This drug works. What, to paraphrase Senate, what is their problem? And my experience of the people on that panel 3 times as a private citizen coming for the first time to the FDA was deeply distressing.
So I've already texted Dr. Tracy Beth Hogue, told her I've read your testimony. I'll be sending her your testimony. I hope she listens to this. And if I could just take a couple more minutes. Dr. O'Neill, you are obviously personally impacted by this. Can you describe any meetings you've had, similar to what we just heard? So again, the American people need to understand what these regulators are doing and not doing. Dr. O'Neill.
Thank you. I will say that my interactions with regulators have been kind. So maybe a bit of a different perspective is they have listened, they have been interested to hear what we had to say, to hear the patient perspective. And I think where we're challenged is that we don't see that translated into regulatory action. And some of the decisions that are coming out are not benefiting patients right now. So listening is great, but two-way conversation and collaboration is actually what's needed, and greater transparency in how patient experience data and patient input is actually being integrated into these decisions.
So my guess is that panel with Duchenne muscular dystrophy back in 2017, whatever, probably listened very nicely to the families, but they still said, no, that's an unacceptable answer. Again, you have my commitment. I'm going to delve into this. We're going to right these wrongs. But Mr. Chairman, this is, again, an excellent hearing. We've got to follow up on this. This is just completely unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senator Alsobrooks.
Thank you so much, Chair Scott, also Ranking Member Gillibrand. And I'm so grateful to be here today, joined by so many patient advocates, caregivers, family members. I've heard from many Marylanders living with rare diseases and from their families, including dozens who have visited my office this week to share their priorities and their concerns. As I underscored with the NIH director a few weeks ago, patients suffering from devastating diseases do not have time to wait for needless delays to critical cures. For Marylanders with rare diseases, delayed access is not just an inconvenience, it is a matter of life or death. For many with rare conditions, clinical trials are their last and best hope. These patients also depend on a regulatory process that is science-driven and capable of turning research into real treatment. Instead of strengthening those foundations, this administration is constantly disrupting clinical trials, slowing innovation, and undermining the pipeline to cures. Scientific integrity should always guide decision-making, and we must protect the firewall between the Food and Drug Administration and political influence. President Trump and Secretary Kennedy continue to decimate critical parts of that system. The instability they've caused ripples across families, physicians, researchers, and innovators, and patients pay the price. So, Ms. Kennedy, I'd like to ask, over the past 2 weeks, we saw a striking example of political interference at the FDA involving a seasonal mRNA flu vaccine from Moderna. The agency first declined even to review the application, then reversed course just 1 week later after a revised regulatory approach. The abrupt change raised serious concerns about transparency, predictability, and political influence in what should be a scientific process, an episode many have described as regulatory whiplash. What does that kind of volatility signal about how the FDA is functioning right now, and why does that matter for rare disease reviews that depend on regulatory consistency?
So, first of all, thank you so much, Senator, for being here, for all of you being here today, and for this important issue. I think first, it's important to say that I'm not an expert in vaccines, and I'm here really to focus on rare disease, but I appreciate the question really asking about the trends that we're seeing, and us being here really trying to follow the trends and understand what that means for rare disease. I also agree with Dr. O'Neill that we have seen real intention from career staff and staff scientists at FDA around their engagement. But what we're concerned about is, to your question, what seems to be reversals in decisions where there had been previous agreement, previous work with sponsors that was directing sponsors to move in one direction, and then regulatory decisions seem to be yielding different decisions at this point. So as I stated in my testimony, we have seen recently 23 complete response letters issued in rare diseases that are delaying access to the patient community and having devastating consequences to our community. Many of those actually are decisions that are reversals in regulatory agreements that had been made previously. Additionally, we're very concerned that previously, if there were to be a complex decision that needed to be worked through between a sponsor and the agency, an advisory committee would have been convened. And we have seen 65% fewer advisory committees convened in 2025 than 2024, and in fact, none since July.
You're watching live a Senate hearing committee on aging. We'll get back to that out of D.C. Also want to let you know, and you saw there a picture outside the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. That is where former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is expected to give a deposition for a House Oversight Committee. Her knowledge and involvement with the Epstein files, and that is set for 10:30, so we will go to that as soon as we see that happen. This is the outside, obviously, where we may or may not see spokespersons or other lawmakers come up to the podium, and then we'll take you out into the actual deposition when that gets underway at 10:30 here on Live Impact News. In the meantime, we'll need to take a quick 2-minute break on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We'll be right back. Back here now at 10:22 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I want to give you an update right now on what's going to happen this morning. A live picture outside of the Chappaqua, New York Performing Arts Center, where Secretary Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State rather, Hillary Clinton, is set to give a deposition when it comes to the Epstein files. This is outside where the podium is set up, excuse me, and media gathered there for any kind of potential gaggle, if you will, when lawmakers or spokespersons come up to the podium and take questions or prepare statements. According to NBC News, this is what we will see, as the depositions will be behind closed doors. So in the moment as it happens, it will not be televised, but they are being recorded, and these depositions will be released in full. We can expect that soon after they happen. So as it happens, we are sure to get notes here at NBC News, but we will not be watching it in real time. That's why we don't have an inside shot. And why it's being held in New York rather than Washington, D.C. is according to a spokesperson with the committee, the Oversight Committee, the House Committee, to accommodate schedules for the Clintons. But we are only hearing, by the way, from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, not former President Bill Clinton. All right, so just to clarify that for you here at 10:24 on Live Impact News. We do want to get back out to Washington, D.C., but this is the Senate hearing on aging as they continue talking about regulation and what happens and who's impacted with our elderly communities. Let's listen in here now live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Given what appears to be a much more streamlined approach in other places?
Thank you, Senator. Completely agree. I think, the United States has been the beacon of biotechnology innovation for so many decades, and it's part of why we have more therapies approved today for rare diseases than we did, decades ago. And I would acknowledge legislation like the Orphan Drug Act that led to that. But as we said in our testimony and many of the panelists here today, we've now stopped keeping pace with innovation. And I think one exact point, which I raised in my testimony as well, is speed to clinical trials. And for me, on the one hand, it is time for patients, and taking weeks, 70 days would be a remarkable number. And I think Congress could work with the FDA to pass legislation to encourage, again, centralized IRBs, leveraging digital technology and artificial intelligence to help us do that, reducing regulatory requirements. For sure, those things could speed us into the clinic. The other piece, I think, which is sitting behind this is our national competitiveness and in some ways our national security. And when we think about Australia, we think about Europe, collaborative nations, et cetera, there are other nations out there that perhaps we see in a different way. And from my perspective, whether you think of that as a security threat or whether you think of that as a threat to getting drugs to patients, in either case, I think Congress can take a leadership role in helping the FDA to speed through that process.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Senator McCormick. Senator Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you to all of you coming out here. A couple words I just heard that I think really just hit the nail on the head. I love your reactions to it. When we're talking about all the different problems that we're facing with the FDA, the bureaucracy or the workforce issues, I think the word that really hits it home is urgency. And I heard you use that. I heard you use that, Ms. Kennedy. I feel like that's really what we're talking about here is like we need a government that is moving at the speed of urgency that the parents are trying to save their kids, right? Like that we're struggling to understand what the actual purpose here is and the speed with which we need to move. And look, I got two boys. I got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. I would do anything for them. And I just like, how do we translate that into the urgency of a government trying to be responsive? And I think that's where some of the disconnect hits on so many levels. Mr. Campbell, you talked about it, used the word national security. I used to work in national security. I was in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere. I saw this government move with urgency when they felt like lives were on the line. But why is it that we can't necessarily translate that to another circumstance where there are millions of lives on the line and people just don't have the time to wait for this? And so I think that that's really a purpose. How do we talk about this as a national security priority? It's the same reason we're trying to save lives abroad. It's the same reason we're trying to save lives here at home. Does that make sense to you, Ms. Kennedy? Am I kind of grasping the crux here of what we're trying to push for?
Yes, Senator, you absolutely are. And Congress has recognized this urgency in statute and has enabled the use of regulatory flexibilities, and that is what's reflected in the accelerated approval pathway and the use of surrogate outcome measures and biomarkers in clinical trial design in rare disease. What we're concerned about is that in many of these complete response letters, what we're seeing reflected is FDA, especially in one of the medical product centers, CBER, seems to be the trend that we're detecting backing away from a comfort level or use of the surrogate biomarkers. But what we've seen in rare disease is surrogates work. Surrogate biomarkers do save lives. We have more than 250 products that have been approved through the accelerated approval pathway, but fewer than 20% of those are for the non-oncologic, non-infectious disease, rare diseases, which means there is a distinction between what's happening in the rare community that's in this room and the broader rare community. So it's really important when we look at those statistics that we sort of look at what the different medical product centers are comfortable with and are doing. And that's why we know that the tools are available. We want to ensure that they're being utilized.
Mr. Campbell, I want to bring you in on this because you've talked about this at length, build off of what we just heard. How would an expanded use of adaptive trial designs or surrogate endpoints by the FDA lend itself to achieving better outcomes when it comes to rare disease approvals?
Yeah, I think the first step is just use what we have available to us, right? So if you look at oncology, I think in 2024, there are 8,000 different therapeutics in clinical trial design. That dwarfs the number in rare diseases today. And I think a large part of that is the much more welcoming use of accelerated approval and surrogate biomarkers. Our own product, Galafold, was approved on a surrogate biomarker. The competitor product, also Fabrazyme, was approved on a surrogate biomarker, and these things work. I get it. Rare diseases are biologically complex. It's very difficult to understand how long it's going to take. You can't do randomized controlled studies in the same way you can with broader disease populations. But when it's done right, as in the case of Fabrazyme, 10 years later, after using real-world evidence and a registry, they were able to confirm the original surrogate endpoint, and now it's a fully approved product. So for me, the tools are all there. It's really more, as we've discussed, consistency and using the tools that exist. If we were to, please go ahead.
I just want to jump in here at the end. I mean, the urgency on the trials and moving up forward on the approvals, but Mr. Campbell, I also want to raise another issue, which is just how long it often takes to build manufacturing facilities here in the United States, the level of slowness with the inspections themselves. So I want that urgency on the manufacturing side as well. What can you be showing us about the decision makings that manufacturers are going through, especially in terms of being able to build this and manufacture this here in America?
Here at home, thank you so much for the opportunity to address that. So just by background, and because we work with external manufacturers, as a small cap company, we don't have the capital to build our own manufacturing facilities, and we certainly don't have an environment to be able to do that. So we work outside the United States. It takes 3 to 5 years to build a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility for protein therapeutics. It takes another 1 to 2 years then to get that facility inspected. So you're talking 5 to 7 years from we want to do this to when it actually has medicine coming off the line for patients. So in my mind, it's mutually beneficial to all of us. So create incentives, and they don't have to be financial incentives. Help with permitting, help with inspections, give priority to inspections for homegrown manufacturing facilities, create an environment that's actually supportive of bringing manufacturing at home versus using, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years, more sticks to try to prevent probably a more qualified person to speak to this, speaking in background. But so let's use incentives instead of sticks to encourage that, because I think the United States ecosystem, the patients, all benefit from doing that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we've talked at length here in this committee about the benefits on so many levels of having that manufacturing here in America, the speed with which we can move, the capabilities. These are some very concrete things that I hope we can follow up on and really come up with a game plan here, because it's just, honestly, it's just pathetic that we're just not able to do this with a greater level of speed. Given the skills and the talent and the resources of our country, we can and should be doing better. So thank you for holding this hearing today.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, I want to get you out to New York, where state leaders are getting ready for former Secretary of Hillary Clinton's deposition on the Epstein files are gathering. This is just outside of Chappaqua, New York. Let's go ahead and listen in.
That was included in that subpoena has already either been interviewed by the Oversight Committee or sent in a statement that they had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of the investigation, except the Clintons. We worked for 6 months to get the Clintons to come in, and then they acted like they were going to come in, and then they didn't show up. And obviously we moved to hold the Clintons in contempt. And I think one thing that surprised the Clintons, they assumed the Democrats on the committee would vote in a partisan manner and not vote to hold the Clintons in contempt. And what they learned was a majority of the Democrats on the committee either voted to hold the Clintons in contempt or voted present. And I think that's a statement that this investigation is serious. It is a bipartisan investigation. The American people have a lot of questions. To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many, if any, questions about their knowledge or involvement with Epstein and Maxwell. Again, no one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process. But we have a lot of questions, and the purpose of the whole investigation is to try to understand many things about Epstein. How did he accumulate so much wealth? How was he able to surround himself with some of the most powerful men in the world? Was he an asset for our government or any other government, these are the questions that we're going to ask over the next 2 days, and hopefully we'll be able to get some answers. And as always, we're going to release the transcripts. We're going to release the video as soon as everyone has approved it. The normal process in a deposition is the attorneys would have the opportunity to review the transcript and review the video to make sure that there are no errors. And this is going to be a long video because this is going to be a long deposition. Today will be a long deposition, I would assume, and tomorrow will be an even longer deposition. Every member of the Oversight Committee is going to have questions for the Clintons, as well as our trained staff that do nothing but depositions. So after our hour of questioning, we're going to send a couple of members of the Oversight Committee out to be able to give you an update of what's going on and answer some questions. So with that, we'll answer a question or two, and then we'll go back to the
Mr. Kumar, are you concerned that there has been a cover-up of sexual abuse of a minor by President Trump? There are missing FBI records that appear to be.
No, we're looking into the accusation by the NPR. We don't know the answer to that. We know what the administration says. We're still looking to get a definitive answer on that. But look, let's just be realistic here. If you go by a lot of what the Democrats have said, you had Jasmine Crockett accused Lee Zeldin of taking donations from Jeffrey Epstein. It was the wrong Jeffrey Epstein. We've had Ro Khanna sit on the floor and name names of people that he thought were involved in Epstein that weren't even involved. So, sometimes the Democrats on the committee aren't the best investigators. Go ahead, Chad. Yes.
Good morning. What about the idea, though, that I understand you say that this is different with some of the members or some of the people who were subpoenaed who didn't have as direct contact. But some folks have said it seems like the Clintons are basically on trial here versus people who know more about the what was going on with Maxwell, what was going on with Epstein, and that this is really kind of dragging them through the mud when there are other witnesses who maybe
let's address that, Chad. The Democrats voted to subpoena the Clintons. The Democrats voted with the Republicans to hold the Clintons in contempt. So the Democrats have just as many questions for the Clintons as the Republicans. So this isn't a partisan witch hunt. This was a motion, a bipartisan motion supported by the Democrats to bring the Clintons in. So I don't think it's any type of being unfair in any way to the Clintons. They've never answered questions, unlike President Trump, who gets questioned every day by just about every one of you about his knowledge or involvement with Epstein. To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many questions about Epstein. So we'll do one more question. Go ahead.
In the spirit of bipartisanship, would you then ask the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to come testify? It seems like he has some information.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
It'll be on my list, and I have an email I printed off for Hillary to ask about Howard Lutnick today. Okay. So
God's watching.
We're asking again, and I want to remind everyone: we've already brought in Alex Acosta and Bill Barr for deposition. That's two Republicans in the Trump administration. So this isn't just about Democrats. This is about anyone that has any knowledge of Epstein, the investigation. I think we all agree the government failed. The government failed the victims. And what our role is, we can't prosecute anyone. But what we have been doing is getting transparency to the American people. We subpoenaed the estate. That had nothing to do with the discharge petition. We subpoenaed the documents for the estate. That's what the victims asked us to do. And what you're seeing is there is accountability finally happening. You've seen at least a dozen very powerful people, men and women, who have already resigned, many in disgrace from their board positions. So we're seeing accountability, but we have a desire to see a lot more accountability. We want to get the answers, and hopefully the next 2 days will be a step in the right direction on our investigation.
Go ahead.
One more, and then that's it.
Well, that being said, I mean, Hillary Clinton has said she has no links to Jeffrey Epstein. She doesn't recall meeting him. So what specific information do you believe she has that warrants her testimony?
Well, you'll see. I mean, we're going to ask a lot of questions, but with respect to when you look at all the co-conspirators, and we've all seen the unredacted documents, Maxwell was the main co-conspirator. No one brought more women in and lied to more women about what was going to happen with their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein than Ghislaine Maxwell. We know that obviously Maxwell was a guest at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There weren't many people that went to that wedding. So again, we're not accusing Hillary Clinton of wrongdoing. We know that Jeffrey Epstein said many times in emails that he was the first person to raise money for the Clinton Initiative, the Clinton Foundation, that he solicited money at some of his properties for the Clinton Foundation. Again, that's not saying anything's illegal, but there are a lot of questions pertaining to Secretary Clinton with respect to Epstein and his involvement in the Clinton Initiative and her relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. So we'll come out every hour when we get finished, and different members will update you and answer any questions. Thank you all.
When the Clintons forced to go to Washington, a taxpayer spent more money here.
Thank you.
You've been watching a live conversation just before the deposition for former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is to begin here at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center in New York. That was Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, as well as some of the GOP members, including Nancy Mace out of South Carolina behind him. Like you heard, they'll be coming out after a round, which takes about an hour to just sort of update folks, maybe answer a question or two, as these depositions will not be televised live, but you also heard that they will release the video. It is being recorded. They will release these videos as soon as they get approved. So a couple of long days expected here, those deposition rounds, where the Republicans will ask questions for an hour, then the Democrats will ask questions for an hour. We expect a lot of people to ask questions. So two scheduled long days of deposition for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, with her involvement, knowledge, and anything else involved with the Epstein files. Of course, Jeffrey Epstein, the late sex offender. We're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 10:43 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I want to take you out live now to folks here in Chicago lining outside of Rainbow. That is where the late Reverend Jesse Jackson lies in repose. And so a line of mourners hoping to go inside and pay their respects to the civil rights leader, attorney, late Reverend Jesse Jackson, which he is going to have a service. They are holding a public service for him here in the Carolinas, in Columbia, South Carolina. That will be on Monday Monday morning at 10:30, a public service where we'll hear from several leaders as well. One of a handful of services planned for the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. We'll be covering that here for you here on Live Impact News starting on Monday morning. So hope you join us then for tributes and respects paid to the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. 10:30 is what we understand Monday morning out of Columbia, South Carolina. We are going to get you back now to Washington, D.C. with the Senate committee hearing on aging. Listening in on Live Impact News.
16s, we didn't know what would change. We had to take a guess, and I worked with them in devising the scale, devising the trial. The patients then told us, you know what, I'm falling less, I'm not as fatigued, and my speech is better. So that was a different outcome we didn't understand at the beginning. That is the epitome of regulatory flexibility. And there's a rule in medicine. Listen to the patient, they're telling you the answer. And the second piece is, ignore the patients at your peril. What we have here is denying of the patient's story. It is the peril not of us, but of the patient, because now the drugs are not being approved. And I think you've hit the nail on the head here. If you're ignoring the patient, then why are you getting up in the morning and coming to do the work that you do with the FDA?
Well said. Dr. O'Neill. Thank you. Obviously you've heard that patients are not outside of the drug development process. They are critical to it. And advisory committees, as Annie had mentioned, are an important place where we can have that scientific dialogue and hear from patients. And their experience is also science. It is human science. But the interaction needs to come way before that, because by the time we get to an advisory board, tens of millions of dollars have been spent, maybe a decade has gone by, we have not treated potentially that many patients who needed treatment. So having a true collaborative dialogue early in the process is essential and an opportunity that needs to be acted upon within the FDA. I think one other thing that we're understanding is key insights around risk tolerance. We also want safe medicines, but we also want the opportunity to save our children, because those answers about a clinical trial come way down the road. And as Mr. Campbell explained, real-world evidence, post-marketing disease monitoring programs, this is where we need to be really focusing on these innovative ways, maybe not so innovative, honestly, anymore, but more frequently used and supported ways to provide that longer-term evidence to support accelerated approval. Mr. Campbell, do you want to add?
For sure. I think what we keep coming back to, and I think you hear the theme, is you have all the tools in place. You have the advisory committees, you have accelerated approval pathways, and I think the frustration is when they're deployed inconsistently and without clarity from the sponsors and from the patient community and from the physicians in terms of how you ended up, meeting the expectation, but then not coming to a positive resolution. There's one other piece that we haven't talked about, if I could just introduce that, which is the Rare Disease Innovation Hub. So if we want to talk about things that Congress could proactively do, we have a tool that's modeled after what was very successful in oncology, the Center of Excellence. But my observation would be is it's underfunded and probably underempowered to do what it needs to do. So when we think about advisory committees, when we think about staffing at the FDA, when we think about consistency between reviewers, Congress could directly fund the Rare Disease Innovation Hub in a meaningful way that would allow us to train rare disease experts that could sit across review teams, across review divisions, and bring some of that consistency, that humanity, that humility, but that expertise that perhaps each of the individual teams or the new reviewer on the team doesn't quite have. So again, I think we have a lot of the tools that we need. We just need to encourage the FDA to use them in the right way. And that's one example we haven't talked about here today, where Congress could fund that directly and allow the FDA to make it a much more valuable tool for.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When you hear the testimony, I think all of us internalize it. I've got 6 grandsons and a granddaughter, and thank God they don't. Everybody's got problems, right? But they don't have a rare disease that's going to shorten their life, and so I can't imagine what a family's going through when they have a family member that has something and then they believe there's a possibility that something could change their life and it doesn't happen. I mean, I would be pretty frustrated. So, and I'd be pretty more than that. So, so Ms. Kennedy, it's important for people to come to Congress and talk about their concerns with regard to the drug approval process.
Well, I know you're asking me, but there are about 800 people on the Hill that would be happy to answer that question as well. Throughout this time here this morning, starting with your opening remarks, we have cited many laws that have been transformational for a rare disease community, and every single one of them started with a member of the community meeting with their elected official and talking about a roadblock that could be transformed and turn into a resource and a tool. And every single one of those laws has transformed lives and ultimately has saved lives. So the answer to your question is an emphatic yes, and we are so grateful for the time you take to meet with our community, to listen to our community, to engage, and to become partners with all of us. So thank you.
Does the FDA appreciate when you guys come here?
I think many do, yes. Maybe some no. But I think overall, over the years, I've been in this space 30 years, and I think we've had strong partnerships with the agency, and many times the agency has very much appreciated our support.
Dr. Schwalman, from a clinical standpoint, what happens to patients with progressive neurologic diseases when access to treatment is delayed due to the regulatory process rather than safety concerns?
They progressively deteriorate, they lose function, they can't live their lives, go to work, spend time with their family, make a living, be productive citizens of society in that way. They become part of the family that people have to take care of instead of taking care of the family themselves. And then they become progressively debilitated, and then they die young. And then family members, in our case, see that. They see their future in the mirror. There's a high incidence of depression and, in fact, suicidality in this patient community as well, and this is across the spectrum. So this is not a motor control problem alone. This is a social, emotional, societal issue. And the issue about medications that improve neurological function in real time work at the level of the physiology where brain cells are sick before they die. And so if you have a medication, even though it's not a gene therapy, you have a medication like troriluzole where we know the mechanism, and you stop the neurons from being so hyperactive that they die, you actually improve function and you slow disease over time, so you're modifying the disease. So the absence of a medication that can treat the disease means that each day that this drug, troriluzole, and others like it, are not being approved means patients are losing brain cells and are closer to death. It is heartbreaking to see, as you all said at the outset, and we're hoping that this can change from today.
I think in your testimony you said that the FDA suggested withdrawing patients from compassionate use care to evaluate whether their conditions would deteriorate, despite physicians expressing the harm would be irreversible. So tell me about what are the ethical implications of that?
So if you have a disease where there's a symptom like a migraine, for example, you can see if I stop the drug, will you get worse for a week or two or a month, and I'll put you back on drug, you're okay. In a neurodegenerative disease like these, and I'm going to be, excuse me if I'm provocative, the last time we had a catastrophe in medical science in the US was between 1922 and 72, I believe. There was like a 40-year period, 32 to 72, when people with syphilis were not treated so that the doctors could see what happened to them, and the patients were not told. That is a case study for every person who is going into human studies research in the United States. We learn about that case. You cannot treat patients like guinea pigs. You have to have them on your story as part of collaborator, expert spying experience.
Time right now is 10:54 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I want to take you back out to Chappaqua, New York, where it appears that Dems are speaking prior to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is expected to give her deposition. Let's listen in.
Zero, zip, zilch, nada that Secretary Clinton had any knowledge of Epstein's crimes. She submitted a sworn statement that she never met Jeffrey Epstein, and my fear is we're here today as part of a political exercise, part of a long-running fever dream where Republicans want to lock up Secretary Clinton. We had the State of the Union this week, and President Trump spoke for 2 hours and refused to even acknowledge the courageous survivors of Epstein's crimes who were in the chamber. He wouldn't even address the issue. His attorney general refuses to even meet with the survivors. So we want to conduct a serious bipartisan investigation. I'm glad that President Clinton will sit down with us tomorrow and answer questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But I wanted to come today to ensure that this is a serious exercise, a serious investigation, and not a political or partisan one. Thank you.
Why weren't the Clintons made to go to Washington to testify?
I'll answer that question. So let me go ahead and we're going to answer one or two questions. Let me just also say, I think today also sets a precedent, which I want to be very clear, that we have said from day one that we want to talk to former President Bill Clinton. And the other person we want to talk to is current President Donald Trump. And so we should be very clear that now that we're going to hear from former President Clinton, I hope that Chairman Comer and the Republicans will join us in demanding that the person who actually appears more times in the files than the former president, who we want to speak with, is President Donald Trump. And so let's get President Trump in front of our committee to answer the questions that are being asked across this country from survivors and from those who have been brutally attacked and raped, sometimes as children. Let's release the files and answer one or two questions. Thank you.
So should the Clintons have come forward sooner to testify and be deposed in front of the committee? And also, what are the discussions with Republicans about bringing other administration officials like Lutnick, who are mentioned in these files, before lawmakers?
We want to hear from Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick, of course, said that he'd stopped communicating with Epstein, our Commerce Secretary, then goes on to visit Epstein's island, communicate with him, go into business with him, all of which was not disclosed. He should not be the Commerce Secretary right now. As it relates to the questions about the location was selected by Republicans. The majority controls where and how the depositions are done. We want to continue hearing from folks.
Just a question. What could they possibly ask Hillary Clinton all day? They've mentioned Maxwell at the wedding. And what questions, you said you're happy to talk to anyone. What questions do you have for Hillary Clinton, given that she said she has no connection?
We're gonna give the Secretary an opportunity to clarify any questions that Republicans might have, that we might have. Look, if she has any information that could be helpful to the investigation, we want to hear that. And so we're going to find out here, and we'll report back what's actually being asked. But broadly speaking, anyone that has any information, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, we want a nonpartisan investigation, and that's going to include ensuring that President Trump comes before our committee. Yes.
Do you have questions about the Clinton Global Initiative and the fundraising involved?
There's going to be questions asked about that. So thank you very much. We'll come back out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you've been watching live remarks just before former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is to give her deposition and her involvement with the Epstein files. Those depositions will be taking place for the next couple of days. Coming up on 11 o'clock, Charlotte Today is up next. Have a great day.